Good. Kenny Carter now, with points off the... Did you notice anything odd about this? I mean, yeah, this is the WNBA's biggest star, the player single-handedly dragging the league to the mainstream, getting blindsided by Kennedy. I won the Good Temper award in China Carter. It's a clip we've seen 1,000 times, but that's not what I want you to pay attention to. Watch again and count the Fever players who come to Caitlin's defense after the hit. If you counted 0, congrats. You correctly guessed not only the number of players who had Caitlin's back, but also the number of teams eager to sign Kennedy Carter. Now, it's no secret that Caitlin took a lot of abuse last season. If it wasn't her opponents bodying her, it was the media, and you're probably going to say, well, that's part of the game. And yeah, you'd be right. Stars get scrutinized, and players will do anything to get in their opponents' heads, especially impact players. But speaking of impact, allowing opponents to take liberties on your star is not how it's supposed to work in sports. It's not part of the code. Even if your stars can handle themselves, you protect them at all costs. Every opposing team needs to know cheap shots will be met with retaliation. If your team doesn't have this dynamic, if it's missing the sandpaper to go with the skill, it's going nowhere. The season is a grind, and the playoffs are even more physically demanding. Now, back to Caitlin. When evaluating the Fever's recent roster moves, it's clear they brought in a lot of skill to support Caitlin. The talking heads are gushing about how scary and unguardable they're going to be. It's like they're going to be the WNBA's Harlem Globetrotters out there. But what about the sandpaper? The grit? Are the Fever tough enough? Well, buckle up, Fever fans, because there's more than meets the eye with their new acquisitions, including one common factor that I believe will unite this team, create team toughness, and put Caitlin in a position she's never been in before. It's all good stuff, so let's get into it. But first, like this video if you think Kennedy Carter won't get signed, except for Chinese teams, of course. So yeah, Caitlin Clark's rookie season became a baptism by fire, so to speak. From the moment she stepped onto the court, Clark faced a level of physical play that went beyond tough defense and bordered on outright intimidation. She had a target on her back and quickly learned that surviving in the pros was going to be a whole different ballgame. The abuse she got, it felt personal. It's no secret that many players, current and retired, were jealous of the attention she got. Her opponents came at her hard and often, determined to make her pay for every point, every assist, and every bit of attention she received. At one point in the year, 177% of all flagrant fouls were committed against her. And the abuse took its toll. After the Fever started the season 1-8, Clark's frustration was palpable. She said, "I feel like I'm getting hammered." The lack of a deterrent on the Indiana Fever roster became glaringly obvious as the season progressed. While other teams had veterans who would step in to protect their stars, Clark seemed like she was left to fend for herself. I mean, her teammates would come and pick her up off the ground, but where was the confrontation? Why were opponents so fearless? Now, despite this, Caitlin managed to produce a rookie season for the ages, 19.2 points per game, with an average of around 23 points per game after the Olympic break. Single-season assists record, rookie points record for points by a guard, first-team All-Star. She was the first rookie to accomplish this since Candace Parker in 2008, Rookie of the Year and fourth in MVP voting. She pushed through the adversity and more than lived up to the hype. Among her many recognitions, she was named AP's Female Athlete of the Year and Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year. So yeah, Caitlin Clark wasn't just another rookie. She was the face of the new generation of women's basketball, bringing unprecedented attention and excitement to the league. I mean, I bet many of you watching this right now didn't watch the WNBA before Caitlin, or at least weren't as invested in it. Viewership was up 17%. Attendance was way up. Merch sales skyrocketed. And it was all because of Caitlin. It's estimated she was responsible for 1 in 6 tickets sold and nearly 27% of the WNBA's revenue. This is a league that was, well, still is losing money, but now it has not just hope, but optimism. So the abuse she took wasn't just a problem for Clark or the Fever. It was kind of a bad look for the WNBA. By allowing her to be targeted without consequence, the Fever was putting the league's golden goose at risk. The situation harkened back to the early days of the NBA, when young stars like Michael Jordan faced similar treatment. It took enforcers like Charles Oakley to send a message that cheap shots wouldn't be tolerated. It's the same with many sports. Deterrence is essential. If your kids know they won't get in trouble for staying out past curfew, they'll keep doing it. Last season, Draymond Green, who knows a thing or 12 about mixing it up, chimed in, emphasizing the need for the Fever to invest in an enforcer to protect Clark, highlighting a strategy often used in the NBA. The psychological impact of an enforcer can't be overstated. Just their presence on the court, knowing there'll be consequences for bad behavior, can alter an opponent's game plan. For young stars like Clark, an enforcer provides more than protection. They offer mentorship and a sense of security that allows them to play their game without constantly looking over their shoulder. As Clark's rookie season came to an end, the questions loomed large. How long could she sustain this level of punishment? And most importantly, what would the Indiana Fever do to ensure their franchise player wasn't left hanging out to dry? Well, they just made some big moves, and everyone is now talking championship. And they should be, because the players they acquired bring a ton of skill and experience. But it's more than that. You have to think when the Fever brass made these moves, they had that clip of Kennedy blindsiding Caitlin looping in their heads. Now, before I dive into the players they picked up and their real impact, we need to talk about the single most crucial move the Fever made early in the offseason. The one that set the stage for everything that followed. Swapping coaches. Shortly after the 2024 season ended, the Fever axed Christie's sides. It was no secret that Caitlin and Christie didn't exactly see eye to eye. You could see it written on Caitlin's face during games. And after Side's departure, she hinted that the coaching didn't give her the support or game plans she needed to succeed. When asked, "What's the best advice you've been given in game this season?" Caitlin's response? "Nobody gives me advice in game. I wish." Recognizing this, the Fever brought in Stephanie White from the Connecticut Sun. Why was this swap so important? Because White is the 2023 Coach of the Year. She has a proven track record of getting the most from her stars and implementing winning systems. She is respected league-wide. This move set the tone. The Fever weren't just aiming to make the playoffs. They were building a contender with a generational talent who, despite being years from her prime, was already in the MVP conversation. The message was clear: the time is now. Bringing in White wasn't just a coaching change. It was a statement to every free agent out there: we're serious about winning, and we're not waiting 5 years to do it. And as it turns out, their message was received. While haters on X claimed that there was no way top free agents would sign in Indy, they were, as usual, wrong. They signed Natasha Howard, DeWanna Bonner, Sophie Cunningham. And if you think that's just about adding talent, think again. Because what the Fever really built, a team that can win now, and one that won't let Caitlin Clark take another cheap shot without answering back.